The coffee mug shattered against the marble floor of Damian Cross's corner office, sending ceramic shards skittering across the pristine surface like fallen stars. Luna Matthews didn't flinch. She had learned not to react to his outbursts, too. Years ago, when she first became his executive assistant and discovered that billionaires threw tantrums just like toddlers, only with more expensive consequences. "This is lukewarm," Damian snarled, not bothering to look at her as she knelt to collect the broken pieces. His steel-gray eyes remained fixed on his computer screen, fingers flying across the keyboard with surgical precision. Said scalding hot, "Are you incapable of following simple instructions?" Luna's fingers paused around a particularly sharp fragment. The ceramic edge bit into her skin, drawing a thin line of blood. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the daily erosion of her dignity. She had perfected the art of disappearing in plain sight, wearing oversized blazers that swallowed her petite frame and thick-rimmed glasses that made her brown. Eyes look owlish and unremarkable. Her chestnut hair was scraped back into a bun, so severe it pulled at her temples, and she moved through his world like a ghost that happened to be useful. "I'll get you another one immediately, Mr. Cross," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. He finally glanced down at her, crouched on his floor like a servant, and something flickered across his face. Not guilt or remorse, but a kind of impatient irritation, as if her presence itself was an inconvenience he had to endure. "Make sure it's actually hot this time," he said, already dismissing her as he turned back to his screen. Luna rose slowly, ceramic pieces cupped in her palms, feeling invisible tears prick behind her glasses. This was her life. This sterile Manhattan office, with its floor-tooth ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, where she existed as nothing more than an extension of Damian's will. She fetched his coffee, organized his files, managed his impossible schedule, and endured his casual cruelty with the stoicism of someone who had convinced herself she deserved nothing better. The Santorini project contracts lay spread across his mahogany desk like treasure maps, their crisp white pages promising millions in resort development deals. Luna had spent weeks coordinating with architects, contractors, and local government officials, ensuring every detail was perfect for today's review. She knew those documents better than Damian did, had caught 3 potentially costly errors that would have derailed the entire project, but he would never know.
Ow.
Her contributions were invisible, just like she was. As she walked toward the door, juggling broken ceramic and wounded pride, Damian's voice stopped her cold. "Clear my schedule for next week." Luna turned, hope and dread warring in her chest. "We're flying to Greece to finalize the resort deal personally." The word we hit her like lightning. In 2 years, Damian had never included her in anything. Beyond the confines of his office, business trips were handled by his male associates. Important meetings included his hand-picked team of executives, and Luna remained behind like a piece of furniture, useful but ultimately forgettable. "I need someone to handle documentation and coordinate with the local teams," he continued, his voice carrying that familiar tone of absolute authority. "Book 2 rooms at the Celestial Santorini Resort. We leave Monday." Luna's hands trembled slightly, ceramic fragments shifting in her palms. This was it, the moment she had been unconsciously waiting for without even realizing it. A chance to step outside the glass cage she had built around herself. "Of course, Mr. Cross," she replied. But something had changed in her voice. A note of determination that surprised even her. As she walked back to her desk in the outer office, Luna caught her reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows. The woman staring back looked trapped, buried under layers of deliberate invisibility. But in her brown eyes, something was finally stirring to life. The rest of the day passed in a blur of arrangements and preparations. Luna booked flights, confirmed meetings, and coordinated with the resort staff, all while Damian's earlier words echoed in her mind. For the first time in 2 years, she would be more than just a shadow in his peripheral vision. She would be essential. That evening, alone in her modest Brooklyn apartment, Luna stood before her bathroom mirror and began to question everything. The severe bun that gave her headaches, the shapeless clothes that hid her figure, the thick glasses that weren't even prescription, just a barrier between herself and the world. She reached up and pulled the pins from her hair, watching as waves of rich chestnut cascaded past her shoulders. Without the harsh styling, her face transformed completely. Her features were delicate but strong, her skin luminous even under the harsh bathroom lighting. When she removed the glasses, amber eyes flecked with gold stared back at her. 2 years of being invisible, she whispered to her reflection. Luna thought about Damian's casual dismissal. The way he announced their trip without asking if she had plans. Without considering she might have a life beyond serving his needs. Every time he had looked right through her, spoken to her like she was voice-activated software rather than flesh and blood. Standing there, seeing herself clearly for the first time in years, Luna made a decision that would change everything. The weekend stretched before her like an empty canvas, and she was finally ready to paint herself back into existence. Her window, the lights of Manhattan glittered like promises, and Luna felt something dangerous and electric coursing through her veins. Damian Cross was about to discover that the most invisible people often make the most unforgettable transformations. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made New York feel electric with possibility. Luna stood outside Salon Boutique in Soho, her heart hammering against her ribs as she stared at her reflection in the glass doors. This was her first act of revolution, and terror mixed with exhilaration in her bloodstream like champagne. "I want to look like myself again," she told Marcus, the salon's renowned stylist, as he ran his fingers through her hair with the reverence of an artist examining raw marble. "Honey, you've been hiding this gorgeous bone structure under all that severity," Marcus said, his eyes bright with creative hunger. "We're going to set you free." The transformation began with color, rich caramel highlights that caught the light, like spun gold. Then came the cut, layers that framed her face and made her eyes look enormous and luminous. With each snip of the scissors, Luna felt pieces of her old self falling away. The woman in the mirror was a stranger, but a beautiful one. "Now for makeup," Marcus announced, leading her to his colleague Sophia, whose artistic eye could turn any face into a masterpiece. "You have naturally gorgeous features," Sophia murmured, studying Luna's face like a painter contemplating a canvas. "We just need to enhance what's already there." Luna learned about contouring and highlighting, how the right shade of lipstick could transform her entire face, how a subtle smoky eye could make her amber gaze smolder with mystery. For the first time in years, she looked in the mirror and felt beautiful. The shopping expedition that followed felt like stepping into a different universe. At Bergdorf Goodman, personal shopper Alina guided Luna away from the shapeless armor she had worn for protection. "You have an incredible figure," Alina said, pulling a silk blouse in deep emerald from the rack. "Why have you been hiding it?" Luna tried on piece after piece, watching her reflection transform with each outfit. The emerald silk made her eyes sparkle like precious stones. A tailored dress in midnight blue celebrated rather than concealed her curves. Wide-leg trousers in charcoal paired with a fitted blazer made her look powerful and sophisticated. "Confidence is the best accessory," Elena said, as Luna admired herself in a mirror. "And you, my dear, are finally wearing yours." By Sunday evening, Luna's apartment looked like a war zone of shopping bags and discarded packaging. Her bathroom counter was covered with new cosmetics. Her closet reorganized with clothes that actually fit her body and flattered her coloring. She practiced walking in heels, applying makeup, styling her hair until muscle memory replaced uncertainty. Standing before her full-length mirror in the midnight blue dress, Luna barely recognized herself. The woman staring back was confident, beautiful, radiant within her fire. This was who she had been all along, buried beneath layers of professional camouflage and self-imposed invisibility. Monday morning arrived with unseasonable warmth, as if the universe itself was conspiring in her transformation. Luna stood in the lobby of Cross Industries Tower at 7:30 a.m. sharp, wearing the emerald silk blouse with a perfectly fitted charcoal skirt. Her hair flowed in soft waves around her face, and without the thick glasses, her amber eyes seemed to glow with inner fire. She felt different, not just in appearance, but in the way she carried herself. Her spine was straighter, her chin higher, her gaze direct and unflinching. The old Luna would have cowered in the corner, invisible and forgotten. This Luna commanded attention simply by existing. Other employees noticed immediately. A security guard who had barely acknowledged her for 2 years suddenly straightened and smiled warmly. The elevator operator, usually buried in his phone, struck up a conversation about the weather. Even Margaret from accounting, notorious for her cold demeanor, complimented her blouse. Each interaction felt like proof that she had successfully stepped out of her invisible shell. She was no longer a ghost haunting the halls of Cross Industries. She was flesh and blood, vibrant and alive. At exactly 8 a.m., the executive elevator chimed, and Damian Cross stepped into the lobby. Luna felt her breath catch, but not from nervousness this time. From power. From the intoxicating knowledge that in mere seconds, her carefully orchestrated plan would unfold. Damian walked past her without a glance, just as he had every morning for 2 years. His steel-gray eyes swept the lobby with their usual impatience, searching for his assistant while looking right through the transformed woman standing directly in his path.
Albert?
That blindness would cost him everything. "Mr. Cross," Luna called out, her voice clear and confident. He turned, irritation flickering across his handsome features as his gaze landed on her. For a split second, confusion replaced annoyance. His eyes narrowed slightly, as if he was seeing her for the first time, but couldn't quite place why she looked different. "Do I know you?" he asked, his voice carrying that familiar tone of impatient authority. Luna smiled, slow and dangerous. "I'm your assistant, Mr. Cross. Luna Matthews. I believe we have a flight to catch." The look on Damian's face was worth every moment of the weekend's preparation. Shock, disbelief, and something else flickered in his steel-gray eyes. Something that looked almost like hunger. The game had begun, and Luna was finally ready to play. The silence in the back of the limousine stretched like a taut wire ready to snap. Damian sat rigid in his corner, stealing glances at Luna when he thought she wasn't looking. His usually sharp mind clearly struggling to reconcile the goddess. Beside him, with the mousy assistant he had barely noticed for 2 years. Luna felt his gaze like heat against her skin, but she kept her eyes fixed on her tablet, reviewing the Santorini project details with newfound confidence. Every few minutes, she would cross her legs or brush a strand of hair behind her ear. Movements that seemed natural but were calculated to drive him slowly insane with curiosity. "Have you always worn your hair like that?" Damian finally asked, his voice rougher than usual. Luna glanced up, amber eyes meeting his with steady confidence. "Like what, Mr. Cross?" "Down. Loose." He cleared his throat, looking uncharacteristically flustered. "It's very ... professional." She almost smiled at his obvious struggle for words. "Thank you. Right. I thought a change might be appropriate for such an important trip." At JFK Airport, Luna noticed how other passengers responded to them as a pair. Flight attendants smiled more warmly. The gate agent upgraded their seats without being asked. And business travelers nodded respectfully in Damian's direction while their eyes lingered appreciatively on Luna. For the first time in her professional life, she wasn't invisible. She was an asset, a beautiful woman on the arm of a powerful man. And the dynamic shifted something fundamental between them. The first-class cabin of their flight to Athens was a cocoon of luxury. With seats that converted to fully flat beds and enough space to work comfortably, Luna settled into her window seat, acutely aware of Damian across the aisle, watching her every movement with fascination that bordered on obsession. As the plane lifted off from New York, Luna felt the last chains of her old life falling away. Below them, the city grew smaller and smaller until it was just points of light in the darkness. And she was finally, truly free. "Would you like champagne?" the flight attendant asked, her professional smile warm and genuine. "Please," Luna replied, accepting the crystal flute with grace that seemed to surprise Damian. He ordered scotch, his usual, but his hand trembled. Slightly as he took the glass, Luna pretended not to notice, but inwardly she felt a thrill of victory. She was affecting him, breaking through that wall of indifference that had made her feel invisible for so long. 3 hours into the flight, Damian finally abandoned any pretense of working and turned to face her directly. "Luna," he said, and hearing her name in his voice sent shivers down her spine. I have to ask, this transformation, why now?
8.
Set down her wine glass, considering her answer carefully. This was the moment that would define everything that came next. Have you ever felt invisible, Mr. Cross? Have you ever stood in a room full of people and felt like you didn't exist? Something flickered in his eyes, surprised perhaps that she was capable of such depth. No, he admitted. I haven't. I have. For 2 years I felt like a ghost. In your office? Useful, but ultimately forgettable. This trip felt like an opportunity to finally exist. Damian leaned forward, his intensity focused entirely on her, for the first time since she had known him. You were never forgettable, Luna. I was just ... blind. The admission hung between them like a confession, raw and unexpected. Luna felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crack under the weight of his suddenly sincere attention. Were you? She challenged, her voice soft but steady. Or were you just comfortable with me being invisible? Shh. He flinched as if she had slapped. Him and Luna realized she had found the exact right pressure point. Damian Cross, master of the universe, was not accustomed to being challenged by anyone, especially not by his quiet assistant. You think I'm cruel? He said, not quite a question. I think you're complicated, Luna replied honestly. I think you've spent so long building walls that you've forgotten how to see the people standing right in front of you. The plane hit turbulence, a gentle rocking that seemed to mirror the instability between them. Other passengers barely noticed, but Luna felt as if the entire world was shifting beneath her feet. And what do you see when you look at me? Damian asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Luna met his gaze directly, no longer the cowering. Assistant, but an equal, a woman who knew her own worth. I see a man who's forgotten how to feel anything real, she said. Someone who's so afraid of vulnerability that he destroys anyone who gets too close. The words hung in the air between them like a challenge. Damian's jaw tightened, his hands clenching into fists, and for a moment Luna thought she had pushed too far, but then something extraordinary happened. He laughed. Not the cold, calculated sound she had heard in board meetings, but something genuine and surprised and almost vulnerable. My God, he said, shaking his head. You've been sitting there for 2 years, seeing right through me, haven't you? Yes, Luna admitted. I have. The rest of the flight passed in a strange new intimacy. They talked about books, about travel, about dreams they had almost forgotten they possessed. Damian told her about growing up with a father who measured love and profit margins, and Luna shared her fear of being ordinary, of disappearing completely from the world without leaving a trace. As the plane began its descent into Athens, Luna realized that everything had changed. The invisible woman was gone forever, replaced by someone who demanded to be seen, to be valued, to be treated as more than a convenient shadow. Damian was watching her again. This time his gaze held something new. Recognition, respect, and underneath it all, the dangerous spark of desire that would complicate everything that came next. Luna, he said as the plane touched down. This week in Santorini, it's going to change everything, isn't it? She smiled, slow and knowing and full of promise. I certainly hope so, Mr. Cross. Santorini exploded around them in a symphony of white and blue, the Aegean Sea stretching endlessly toward the horizon like liquid sapphire. The celestial resort perched on the cliff edge like a jewel, its infinity pool seeming to spill directly into the sky. Luna had seen pictures during her research, but nothing had prepared her for the raw beauty that took her breath away. Your rooms are ready, the concierge announced in accented English, presenting them with keycards, presidential suite for Mr. Cross, and the Aphrodite suite for Ms. Matthews. Luna noticed how naturally the staff assumed she was important, how they treated her with the same deference they showed Damian. She was no longer the invisible assistant tagging along behind her boss. She was a woman who belonged in luxury, who commanded respect simply by existing. Her suite was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows opened onto a private terrace with views that seemed to stretch into eternity. The bed was draped in white silk, rose petals scattered across the coverlet, and champagne chilled in a silver bucket beside fresh orchids. It was the kind of room designed for romance, for passion, for moments that would be remembered forever. Luna stood on her terrace as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of coral and gold. The warm Mediterranean breeze played with her hair, and she felt more alive than she had in years. This was who she was meant to be, not the cowering assistant, but this vibrant woman who belonged in beautiful places. A soft knock interrupted her reverie. She opened the door to find Damian standing in the hallway, and her breath caught it. The sight of him. Gone was the severe business suit, replaced by white linen pants and a navy shirt open at the collar. The casual clothes revealed the powerful build she had only glimpsed beneath his usual armor. And the Mediterranean sun had already begun to bring out golden highlights in his dark hair. "I thought we should review tomorrow's presentation," he said, but his eyes were devouring her appearance. Luna had chosen a flowing sundress in soft coral that complemented her skin tone and made her amber eyes glow like honey. "Of course," she replied, stepping aside to let him enter. The suite suddenly felt smaller with his presence filling it. Damian moved to the windows, his hands clasped behind his back as he stared out at the view, and Luna realized he was struggling with something. The confident businessman had been replaced by a man clearly out of his element. "This place is incredible," he said finally. "It is," Luna agreed, moving to stand beside him. "I can see why you want to expand here." They stood in silence for a moment, the air between them electric with unspoken tension. Luna was acutely aware of his proximity, the way his cologne mixed with the salt air, the warmth radiating from his body. "Luna," he said quietly, not looking at her, "I owe you an apology." She turned to face him, surprised by the vulnerability in his voice. 2 years, he continued. 2 years of treating you like you were invisible, like you didn't matter. I was wrong. Why? She asked simply, "Why didn't you see me?" Damian finally met her gaze, and she saw something raw and honest in his steel gray eyes. "Because seeing you would have meant admitting I wanted you," he said. "And wanting something, someone, that much scared the hell out of me." The confession hung between them like a live wire. Luna felt her heart hammer against her ribs, but she didn't look away. "And now," she whispered. "Now I can't stop looking at you," he admitted. "I can't stop thinking about you. This transformation is not just external, is it? You've always been this strong, this beautiful. I just refuse to see it." Luna felt tears prick her eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of vindication, of finally being seen for who she truly was. "I need you to understand something," she said, her voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm her. "I didn't transform myself for you. I did it for me. To reclaim who I was before I decided being invisible was safer." "No," Damian said, moving closer. "That's what makes it so incredible. You did this for yourself, and in doing so, you've shown me everything I was too blind to see." He reached out, his fingers gently tracing the line of her jaw. "You're extraordinary, Luna. You always were." When he kissed her, it was nothing like she had imagined during all those stolen moments of fantasy. It was desperate and hungry and full of 2 years of suppressed longing. Luna melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt as she finally allowed herself to feel everything she had denied for so long. But even as passion threatened to consume them both, a part of Luna's mind remained coldly analytical. This was Damian Cross, a man who consumed everything beautiful in his path and discarded it when he grew bored. Could she trust that this was real, or was she just the latest challenge to conquer? As if sensing her hesitation, Damian pulled back, his breathing ragged. "I don't want to rush this," he said, though the desire in his eyes told a different story. "You deserve better than that. It's better than a man who spent 2 years ignoring your worth." Luna studied his face, searching for signs of deception, but found only honesty and something that looked dangerously like love. "What happens after?" "Santorini?" she asked. "Do we go back to New York and pretend this never happened? Do I become your invisible assistant again?" "Never," Damian said fiercely. "I could never unsee you now, Luna. This changes everything." As they stood together on the terrace, the sun sinking into the Aegean in a blaze of color, Luna realized she was at a crossroads. She could retreat back into safety, accept his words at face value, and hope for the best. Or she could demand everything, refuse to settle for anything less than complete honesty and commitment. The old Luna would have been grateful for whatever scraps of attention he offered. But the new Luna, the woman who had reclaimed her power and her worth, wanted it all. "Prove it," she said, her amber eyes blazing with challenge. Damian smiled. Slow and dangerous and full of promise. "With pleasure." The morning of the presentation dawned crystal clear, the Aegean stretching like silk beneath a sky the color of polished turquoise. Luna stood before her mirror, applying the final touches of makeup with hands that trembled only slightly. Today would determine everything, not just the success of the Santorini project, but the future of whatever was blooming between her and Damian. She had chosen her outfit carefully, tailored dress in deep navy that commanded respect while celebrating. Her femininity, paired with heels that made her feel powerful and confident. The woman in the mirror was someone she barely recognized from 6 months ago, let alone 2 years. This was who she had always been, underneath the camouflage of invisibility. A soft knock interrupted her preparations. She opened the door, too. Fine Damian, in a perfectly cut charcoal suit, but his usual composed demeanor was cracked with visible tension. "Ready for this?" he asked, though something in his eyes suggested he was asking about more than just the business meeting. "Been ready for 2 years," Luna replied, shouldering her leather portfolio. "The question is, are you?" The resort's conference room overlooked the caldera, its floor-to-ceiling windows providing a backdrop so stunning it seemed almost unreal. Stavros Petros, the local development partner, was already waiting along with his team of architects and lawyers. Luna had spoken with him numerous times over the phone. But seeing him in person revealed a man in his 50s with silver hair and intelligent dark eyes that missed nothing. "Mr. Cross," Stavros rose, extending his hand with warm Mediterranean hospitality. "Welcome to Santorini." "Thank you for accommodating our schedule," Damian replied. But Luna noticed the slight stiffness in his posture that appeared whenever he was nervous. "And you must be the remarkable Ms. Matthews," Stavros continued, turning to Luna with a smile that held genuine warmth. "Your coordination of this project has been flawless." It's rare to work with someone so thorough and insightful, Luna felt. Heat rise in her cheeks, not from embarrassment, but from the unfamiliar pleasure of professional recognition. "Thank you, Mr. Petros. I'm excited to finally see the project come together." As they settled around the polished conference table, Luna noticed how naturally Stavros included her in the conversation, asking for her opinions and treating her as an equal partner rather than Damian's subordinate. It was intoxicating, this feeling of being valued for her mind and contributions. The presentation began smoothly. Damian outlined the resort expansion plans with his usual commanding presence. But Luna noticed his glances in her direction, seeking her approval and support in a way that would have been unthinkable just days before. When it came time to discuss the environmental impact assessments, Stavros turned to Luna directly. "Ms. Matthews, you mentioned some concerns about the coral reef preservation. Could you elaborate?" Luna felt a moment of panic. This wasn't her area of expertise, and the old her would have deferred to Damian immediately. But the new Luna straightened her shoulders and spoke with quiet confidence. "The existing resort's wastewater treatment system is outdated." She began pulling up the relevant documentation on her tablet. "I've identified 3 potential solutions that would not only meet current environmental standards, but exceed them, potentially making this a showcase for sustainable luxury development." She outlined her research with growing confidence, watching as both Stavros and his team leaned forward with genuine interest. When she finished, the room was silent for a moment before Stavros began to nod enthusiastically. "Exceptional work," he said. "This level of environmental consideration will make the project much more attractive to EU regulatory bodies. Ms. Matthews, have you considered a career in international development?" Luna felt Damian's sharp intake of breath beside her, but she kept her focus on Stavros. "It's something I'd be very interested in exploring." The meeting continued for another hour, with Luna fielding questions and providing insights that clearly impressed everyone in the room. When they finally shook hands on the preliminary agreement, Stavros lingered. "Ms. Matthews," he said quietly, "I'm opening a new office in Athens next year. focusing on sustainable Mediterranean development. If you're ever interested in a change of scenery, I would very much like to discuss opportunities with you.
What?
Accepted his business card with a smile that held infinite possibilities. I'll definitely keep that in mind. The silence in the elevator back to their floor was deafening. Damian stood rigid beside her, his jaw clenched with what looked like barely controlled fury. When the doors opened, he strode toward his suite without a word, leaving Luna to follow. What the hell was that? He exploded the moment they were alone. That was me doing my job, Luna replied calmly, though her heart was racing. Exceptionally well, I might add. Your job is to assist me, not to undermine me in front of potential partners. Damian snarled, his composure completely shattered. Luna felt something cold and clear settle in her chest. This was it. The moment of truth she had been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. Undermine you? She repeated, her voice dangerously quiet. By contributing valuable insights to a project I know better than anyone? By demonstrating competence and intelligence? By accepting job offers from other men while sitting next to me? Damian shot back. Luna realized with crystal clarity that this wasn't about business at all. Is that what this is about? She asked, moving closer until they were standing mere inches apart. You're threatened by the possibility that I might leave? Threatened? Damian laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm not threatened, Luna. I'm territorial. There's a difference. No, Luna said firmly. There isn't. Because you don't own me, Damian. You never did. Not when I was invisible, and certainly not now. Right. Something dangerous flickered in his steel-gray eyes. Don't I? Moved closer, backing her against the window until she could feel the heat radiating from his body. For a moment, Luna felt the old fear creep in, the instinct to shrink and disappear. But then she remembered who she was now, what she had fought to become. No, she said, meeting his gaze without flinching. You don't. And if you think intimidation will work on me now, you're sadly mistaken. Damian stared at her for a long moment, and Luna could see the war raging behind his eyes. Control versus surrender. Possession versus love. The old patterns versus the terrifying possibility of something real. Finally, his shoulders sagged, and he stepped back, running his hands through his hair. You're right, he said quietly. God help me, you're right. I spent 2 years not seeing you, and now I'm so terrified of losing you that I'm trying to cage you all over again. Luna felt her anger begin to soften, but she didn't let it show. This was too important, too fundamental to their future. Won't be caged, Damian, she said. Not by invisibility, and not by possession. If you want me in your life, it has to be as an equal. As a partner, not a possession, even if that means you might leave. He asked, his voice raw with vulnerability. Luna reached up, cupping his face in her hands, feeling the slight tremor that ran through him at her touch. Especially then, she whispered, love without choice isn't love at all. It's just another kind of prison. When he kissed her this time, it was different. It's not desperate or possessive, but tender and wondering, as if he was discovering her all over again. Luna melted into him, finally allowing herself to believe that this might be real, that the invisible woman had truly become someone worthy of being loved. 6 months later, Luna stood in her new corner office in Athens. Watching the sun set over the Acropolis through floor-to-ceiling windows, the Petrus Development Group had exceeded every expectation, giving her the kind of challenging, meaningful work she had only dreamed of during her invisible years. Her phone buzzed with a text from Damian, who was flying in from New York for the weekend. Miss you. Can't wait to see what you've accomplished in your kingdom by the sea. Luna smiled, her amber eyes bright with contentment. They had both learned something valuable in Santorini. She had discovered her own worth, and he had learned that love meant letting go of control. Their relationship now was built on mutual respect, shared ambitions, and the understanding that they chose each other every day. As she gathered her things to leave the office, Luna caught her reflection in the window. The woman staring back was confident, accomplished, and undeniably visible. She had found her voice, claimed her power, and built a life that honored every part of who she was. The invisible woman was gone forever, replaced by someone who would never again settle for being overlooked or undervalued. And in learning to see herself clearly, she had taught the man she loved to see her too. Do you like this video? If the story touched your heart, subscribe for more emotional tales and share with someone who believes in the power of true love. Let us know in the comments. Love connecting with our global community of romance lovers.